All right, let's go ahead and finally see whether the integration test that we wrote does indeed work. So what I'm going to do is simply right click, and then I'm going to run this test. Just give it a second. And it seems that we have an error. So let's actually scroll down and see. So URL should start with path. So I think it's the same thing. So right here, API v1 and then payment. So / and then payment. Or actually / and then API. Now let's go ahead and give it a try again. Run. And if everything works fine, this should work. And there we go. You see that we actually have a working integration test. This is really, really cool. So let me actually now go ahead and prove it to you that our integration test is working. So remember, inside of our mock Stripe API service, so what I want to do here is actually simply change this to false. Right, so when we use the mock Stripe service, the card payment charge will have the is card debited field as false, which means that the application will throw an exception. So let me go back to the test and then run it again. Just give it a second. And there we go. You see that it didn't work. So it did throw an exception. And let's see if we have the exception somewhere around here. So there we go. So you can see that card not debited for customer and then the actual customer ID. So it means that our integration is working beautifully, right? So right here, so let me put this back to true, right? So right here, remember that we have this property, so stripe.enabled and then false. So let's go ahead and actually try and use the real Stripe API. And this also should actually blow, right? So let's actually now run the same test. There we go. So now this is a different error. So if I scroll down, and there we go, cannot make Stripe API charge, and there we go, no such token, XO, and you can see right here. So this is actually trying to make a real request to Stripe, right? So obviously it's failing because, right, because we haven't really set up Stripe to work, right? So we don't have a Stripe account, and this is, for example, when you take the application to an environment and then you set up the actual Stripe account and then you test it, right? And when I mean environment is, for example, deploying the application to, for example, Amazon AWS, right, or Google Cloud, right? So an environment where you can test that you can charge cards, right? So I think this is it. So let me actually put this back to false, right? So I'm going to put that back to false and go back to our test, run it again. And there you go. So you can see that it's working beautifully. So let me actually just add some comments to end this. So given a customer, right, register right here, you can improve on this comment right here, and then payment, so payment, payment, and then payment, and then request, there we go, and then so, oh, actually here, when customer is, or actually when payment is sent, we're going to say then, so right here, then both customer registration and payment requests are 200 status and then code. And then right here, let's simply say that payment is stored in DB, right? So let me actually leave a to do here. So to do, so do not use payment repository, and then instead create an endpoint to retrieve payments for customers. Right, so I think this makes more sense. Remember that I said that we shouldn't really be using the payment repository, but we just use the mock MVC in integration tests. So this is all for now. If you have any questions on integration tests, go ahead and drop me a message. And you saw that we actually use the mock MVC, and basically I'm going to leave a link where you can learn more about mock MVC. You can assert on much more than we actually done, right? So right here we simply are asserting that the status code is 200, but we could assert on the payload and a bunch of other cool things that the mock MVC offer us. I'm going to leave a link where you can learn more about it, but if you have any questions, go ahead and drop me a message. And before I forget, so right here we need actually another to do. So to do, right? So ensure SMS is delivered, right? So remember that we're going to use Twilio for the bigger exercise that you're going to have to attempt to make sure that you understand all of this, right? So you're going to have to fill in this integration test, right? And there you go. So if you have any questions, go ahead and drop me a message. Otherwise, catch me on the next section where we're going to learn about test-driven development.